So,
Very happy to have another young Indian with us, an economist, part of the Voice of the Young series. Hello, everyone. Good to be back. Right now, we have with us Sayantan Ghosh. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Sayantan.
yeah, thank you so much, sir, for having me here. And so it's and inviting me over to your show. So basically, at the outset, I must say it's a great platform for anyone who is trying, people like me, who is trying to embark on a journey of research, to share their thoughts with you and exchange ideas and the work we're trying to do. So yes, thank you very much for that. And I would be happy to, kind of pause in between, take questions, answer doubts and clarifications. And I don't want it to be a kind of a monologue, but if that's the rule, I'm happy with that as well.
There's no
But,
rule. There's no rule. It's just
okay,
what works, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so we don't have any
sure.
rules. As they say, the only rule is that there is no rule. You
Yeah.
can't get away from that rule, right?
Yeah,
All right,
yeah, yeah.
let's go.
That's unbreakable kind of a thing. So,
Right, let's
uh,
go.
yeah. So, just to introduce myself to the general audience. I did my undergraduate degree in economics from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta. And after that, I went to pursue a master's in economics only from the University of Calcutta. So after my master degree, I worked as a research associate role with JPAL. I have till now have worked on three projects. So first is both were based in Patna, and this project, which I'm currently working on, is based in Dehradun, Uttarakhand. And my journey began in a kind of very conventional way, as most people have their journeys in this field of research. You work as a RA for a couple of years, and then kind of try to plan for a PhD ahead. So that's how I'm. It's for me as well. So yeah.
So are you
So
in Uttarakhand now? Are you in?
yeah, I am in Uttarakhand right now, Dehradun. Yeah.
All right, let's continue. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no worries. I mean, I'm happy to answer your questions as we go along. Yeah. So, my main areas of interest lie in the broad intersection of development economics, political economy, and kind of a development oriented person. But I do have some, kind of affinity towards macro as well. But but I'm working on development and labor as of now. But let's see, maybe in the future, I could kind of explore the other wide-ranging fields that economics has to offer. So, I'm currently working on this project that I'm currently working on. This is kind of a, intervention, is kind of a randomized controlled trial. And JPAL is famous for the implementation of randomized controlled trials throughout the world. I guess everyone who is kind of familiar with the work that JPAL does knows about this. And so in this RCT, we're trying to see how if we are kind of training the instructors in ITIs in Uttarakhand and nearby places. With the additional top of training of the instructors, how does this translate into better labor market outcomes, whether it at all translates into better labor market outcomes, or how things are kind of how things pan out in the long run, labor market effects, whether there are such frictions gets reduced, whether there is spatial immobility, mobility that kind of gets affected. So these are the basic broad questions that we're trying to look at. So the project is at the very initial stages, and we're trying to see what more we can get out of this thing. So my personal interest would lie in the regions of economics of conflict, and that is something that is very close to me in some sense, because I have been reading about the literature on conflict for quite some time now. And uh, and I kind of like the way the structure and the configuration of conflict has changed over the years. So is it possible that I can speak on it a bit, conflict and other related stuff like culture, identity? Yeah, is it fine, sir?
Yes, all topics are fine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks. So there's somewhat recent literature in the economics realm. Um, Conflict was not taken very seriously uh, before 2000, but prior to 2000 and most recently, in the recent past, things have changed quite a lot. Conflict, people have started working very rigorously and very vehemently on conflict. So so I would like to start with this very fascinating quote by Donald Horowitz, who was a political scientist. And I think people who are kind of familiar with the conflict literature would definitely recall this very kind of poignant and very uh, prosaic, as well as very uh, particular quote that Donald Horwitz writes at some point in his book, Ethnic Group and Conflicts, which was published in 1985. And he writes that in much of Asia and Africa, it is only a modest hyperbole to assert that the Marxian prophecy had an ethnic fulfillment. So this is a quote which is kind of which is kind of self-explanatory, but it also kind of open doors and open avenues for more research, because the type of conflict that we've seen over the years would mainly be a kind of economic, based on economic sanctions or rent-seeking behavior, or kind of economic motives that fuels conflict. Um, so these type of conflicts are what has been observed throughout in the past, but things have changed quite a bit now. So today, conflict does not really take place along economic lines. It takes place along, what they call, what economists like to call, along horizontal lines. So there are two lines, and this is I am referring to one of the paper by Debraj Rai and his co-authors. So. They say that conflict takes place along two lines. One is the vertical line, and one is the horizontal line. So by vertical line would mean that people would get into conflict with groups who are above one another in the income ladder or in the wealth ladder. And by horizontal line, it would mean that people would, kind of be in conflict with groups that has got nothing to do with economic power, because they are on the same line, right? So it's a division along the religious lines, caste lines, class lines. So these or maybe some other parameter or some other factor that is salient to them at that point in time, or that has been historically salient and persistent throughout. So uh, so rather than being on the forefront of what happens to be kind of the changing structure of conflict.
Sayantan, just
um,
a minute. This is all
so,
new to me in terms of the details. So let me just clarify. Uh,
right.
can you give us some examples of horizontal and vertical conflicts?
Sure. So I would like to state some conflicts of the past, and then I come to the conflict that is happening in recent years. So if you see, most of the conflicts in the industrial era or the industrial revolution, or after that period, somewhere around 1800s, post 1800s, early 1900s, would revolve around people would fight with one another because some people have money and some people don't have money, which is kind of the Marxian prophecy that Donald Horwitz mentioned. So essentially, it would mean that people would fight against groups uh, who have more money. So the idea is that the haves and the have-nots get into a fight with each other, because the have-nots does not have anything, and the people who do have money have got all the resources at their disposal, so they can kind of uh, accelerate, and they can move on up the income ladder. So essentially, these is kind of so everything that is related to income, wealth, bequest would imply that it is a kind of a vertical conflict. I mean, this is that Debraj Rai puts it, but there can you can kind of name it in other ways as well. So, and another example of horizontal conflict would mean conflict along caste lines, religious lines, or some other lines that would be salient to the individual groups, but it is not universally salient. Okay. So think about this in sort of examples like the Hindu-Muslim conflict in India. It's more about, whether it's more on the lines of religion, or maybe think about the Hutu-Tutsi conflict in Rwanda. It's more about the ethnicity, whether people of different ethnicities can mix together. It's the public share of the good that is provided by the government. So these are, I'll think of the Tamil Sinhala conflict or the Basque violence in Spain. So these are effectively kind of conflicts that take place along horizontal lines, and I think these few examples would kind
Okay.
of
Yeah, let's continue.
yeah. So I think I should ask you that is it clear, or should I explain a bit more? I mean, I'm
Oh,
happy to
it's
do
clear.
that.
It's clear.
Okay, okay. So so conflict takes place, as we just discussed, among various dimensions. Um, Majorly two. One is the vertical, and one is horizontal. But the study on conflict is not really new. So social scientists, apart from economists, have also explored the various dimensions of conflict. And there is some fantastic work by political scientists like James Fearon, David Latin, who have all written elaborately about how civil wars uh, can take place, and what causes this civil wars to take place, and why they persist for so long, things like that. So there is also some right Indian origin scholars like Ashutosh Varshney, who has this very interesting book about India called Ethnic Groups, ethnic conflict in civil life, if I'm not wrong. I might be wrong on the name of the book, but this is somewhere around that ethnic conflict in civic life in India, where he talks about how historically post-independence there are some hotbeds of conflict like Surat, Baroda, Calcutta, and other places. So, so perhaps an interesting question to ask is whether this place still remains the epicenter of conflict. So remember, Varshney is writing this book somewhere around in the early 2000, and still it is a very important question at this point in time, that whether these places still remain the epicenter of conflict. So another question that can be added to this, or which serves as a complement to this, is uh, whether the hotbeds of conflict have experienced very close political competition at present. So the answer to that is perhaps yes. There is close competition in most of the states that we kind of mentioned, but we do see a stronger political competition in the states like West Bengal, Maharashtra, right? So we probably but we don't know the direction of the causality. I mean, it's very difficult to, you know, uh, establish a causal relation between these two events. But and it's also confusing whether the direction of the causality run both ways. I mean, because if you have a strong political competition, you engage in conflict. That can be one of the ways, or it is because that you have greater ethnic conflict in these cities, it leads to greater political competition. So the direction of the causality is kind of is something that needs to be investigated. I'm not aware if any paper or any kind of anyone is studying this very closely, but I'm sure that people would be interested in taking this up, and it seems to me like a very important question. Okay. So, as I was talking about Ashutosh Varshane's very good book, I mean, I found it quite insightful in many ways. I mean, I got to know better about India and how close, you know, close closely Indians integrate with each other, and how openly they kind of fight with each other as well when the time comes. And it's kind of very it's kind of a very immersing book. But the thing is that we get to know a lot that uh, we didn't knew, because Varshney and another political scientist called Stephen Ian Wilkinson collect data till 1995, I guess, if I'm not wrong, based on Times of India report. Um, uh, on the number of conflicts by districts, and they kind of they do a geospatial tagging of these. So it's kind of a very rich data set, but the only limitation is that it has got data till 1995. One of other limitation of this data set is that it contains incidents that was reported in the Times of India only. So many young researchers doing research these days, like Aditya Dasgupta of UC Merced, is also a political scientist, Devish Kapoor. So they kind of tell us in a paper that we can't be really over reliant on national newspaper reports as national newspaper reports, as they severely underreport this incident. So they collect vernacular newspaper reports from Oriya newspapers, Bengali newspapers, Telugu newspapers, and show that region-wise conflict has been consistently underreported.
Okay.
So actually, sorry,
Go
do
ahead.
you have a
I
question?
said okay.
Okay. So actually, they tried to see if centrally, so in their paper, they tried to see if centrally delivered anti-poverty programs help in reducing conflict. So the general reasoning, as one would kind of expect, is that as people find gainful means of employment, it makes them more costly to partake in conflict, right? So because they have to go out of their homes, you know do not like waste their labor hours not on anything and come back with kind of a broken hand. So that's kind of costly, and that's kind of more risky, so people would try to avoid it. I mean, this is the standard labor laser choice argument in microeconomic theory that we see, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so they see the level. So these researchers see that the levels of violence gets reduced, but the effect is much weaker in states where anti-poverty programs are riddled with corruption, rent-seeking, and have a very weak state capacity. Local state capacity is kind of a determining factor. um, in this paper, at least, they say that if the state has a very weak local state capacity and they are unable to implement the NREGA's program very efficiently, then still people find way to kind of engage in conflict. And so the overall conflict has kind of reduced. This That's very evident, but they suggest that they still have scope of engaging in conflict. So that is something that needs to be kind of researched, I think, more. And uh, people can kind
Let
of.
me ask you for examples, of
Yeah.
it's not your opinion, you are quoting the literature, obviously, where
Yeah.
they were successful in reducing conflict and where they were not successful. Can you just give us some examples, maybe one each?
Yeah, so they were successful in reducing conflict in places like West Bengal, Bihar. Okay, so because and the places where they were not successful in reducing conflict was for example, Maharashtra. Okay.
So
uh,
in Maharashtra is a big state, West Bengal, Bihar, they are big states. Can you
right.
pinpoint the sub location where they were?
So I don't exactly remember the sub-locations, but for example, you might have that, but there was kind of Maoist violence in West Bengal, in the Jungle Mahal area and all
Yeah.
that. So there is also, West Bengal has also a strong strong history of Naxalite movements. So that has gone down, I guess. I mean, that's pretty evident from the data and as well as from the general observation. But whether this is due to the anti-poverty programs, uh, it's a bit difficult to kind of, it would be exaggeration to state that it's only because of the anti-poverty programs that this has happened. But these authors show that, kind of they kind of try to test the efficacy of the NREGS with the kind of and correlate it with the um, levels of violence in the state.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
So
Wonderful.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I understand the point. Let's
Yeah.
continue.
Okay. So also, but things are not that clear even till now. There has been mixed evidence on whether uh, foreign aid, for example, reduces violence. Um, if I'm not wrong, I can remember that it had null effects, like it had null effects in Afghanistan, which would mean that if you give foreign trade, the level of conflict remains unchanged in places like Afghanistan. And I read it somewhere. I can't really cite the source as of now. And the things were exactly the opposite or the other way around in Philippines. That with the infusion of foreign aid, conflict becomes more people become conflict generation of conflict increases. Yeah. So, for example, in Philippines, there is this big kind of a local gang which operates. I am forgetting the name of the gang as of now, but so everything is very much contingent on the local state capacity and the local movements of of these rebel gangs. For example, Christopher Blackman, who is also a political scientist, a very renowned political scientist at University of Chicago, writes a book called Why We Fight, and he kind of dwells and reflects on the drug gang in Colombia and others associated places and Mexico. Uh, so, so there has been studies done by these people on how kind of violence. So let's think of this: generating violence is costly. You need more resources as well as men to generate a conflict. Now, the idea is that you have groups of people who are either willing or not willing, or to some extent willing to take part in a conflict. So you have to kind of accumulate these groups and bind them by a common agenda and kind of, uh, and kind of partake in a conflict with a different sort of a gang who has a different ideology, different ways of seeing things. So yeah. So I was talking about foreign aid and kind of digressed a bit. Sorry for that. So so all these three possibilities, like whether foreign aid can increase, decrease, or kind of make conflict remain unchanged, can be defended with the economic logic. Because let's assume that conflict increases. Why? Because people now the size of the pie has increased, right? Because of the infusion of foreign aid. Now people would want to extract as much they can. So kind of they fight with one another for this additional top up that has been received in the form of foreign aid. So that can generate more conflict, right?
Yeah.
So that is there. Now, why would it reduce conflict? It can reduce by by a different economic logic. We can say that it would reduce conflict because more resources are flowing in the economy. People would find gainful employment, and people would devote their times working and not engaging in any sort of a war or kind of a battle with one another.
Mhm.
So So both these economic logic or economic mechanisms are in place, but uh, but it's not uniform across everywhere. So that's something which is very important. So what works in Philippines does not work in Iraq. What works in Iraq does not work in Afghanistan. And so I think this is the most trickiest part of all, that there is no magic bullet, and it's a very difficult part on the part of the policymakers, that um, how to kind of develop a strategy, or what to take kind of a develop policy that would really help in bringing down the levels of conflict. So I would say that so policy responses to this would require would need to be customized along historical trends, uh, and also local state capacities, how they function, uh, and things like that. And also, the state has a very important role to play in such a regard. So I think that yeah, so that's mainly the role of the state is very important. So and yeah, so that needs to be, that cannot be undermined. But at the times, it is the state that kind of promulgates or propagates the conflict.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a very very mixed sort of evidence as to how policymakers should go about creating policies that would kind of reduce the levels of violence and conflict. So yeah, so I guess on the policy front, that is immensely important, but it's extremely challenging as well.
Okay. All right. We have
So
heard a lot from you on the professional side. We didn't hear
yeah.
anything on the personal side. So maybe it's time to talk a little bit about how you decided to go into economics, why you are sticking with it, what's your aim, and so on. So let's hear, and what you enjoyed in your college life and so on, because some young people may also want to hear from you. So let's have a look at your personal side if you want
So
to.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. So I would say that going into economics was kind of a decision that was hanging on my mind when I was in class, when I was in the plus two. But I was not sure whether to kind of take up economics, because I heard a lot from seniors that economics would be very kind of challenging, and if you have a combination of maths and statistics, that would be equally challenging, because things would seem extremely mathematical. And it was, I mean, they were not kind of misguiding or misleading us. It was a bit challenging for a class 12 guy to kind of go to college, and the first thing that yeah, he or she learns is you know uh, how to kind of real analysis stuff, or graph theory, something that's something, or maybe integral calculus or differential calculus. So that was kind of tough times for me, but that was the time when we learned a lot about life, about passing our papers, about failing our papers, and how if you fail, you have to come back stronger in the next semester. So I would like to stress, if uh, someone would be interested to hear that, in order to enjoy success or whatever, I mean, however you put it, failing is very important, because and with failing you get to know exactly where you are lacking, and how to kind of bring out a better version of yourself from inside. So this is something like I got to realize over the years. Surviving college was not easy, but it did build a very solid foundation for me. Then I went out for my master's at the University of Calcutta, and I found that one of the many things that was lacking. Actually, I mean, at some point, Calcutta used to be kind of epicenter of economic research at times, and things have not gone down so well with the past, but still there are people, there are researchers, there are professors who are kind of trying to do good research, and there are quite a few of them who are trying to do work that matters. uh, but the overall landscape is not very encouraging at this moment, at least on the research side. But yes, so again, I am digressing a bit. Let's get back to the questions that you asked. So yes, you asked me what I enjoyed in college. So that is the most difficult thing that I don't even know myself, because college life was so stressful. It was kind of no fun at all, and you know, uh, people always used to be under the fear that if I'm wasting time here, I will have to pay for it. You know, you get difficult question papers, and you have to write equally amazing answers to pass them off. So that's something, you know, that kind of those were days where enjoyment was limited, but it taught us the basic value in life that you need to work hard to achieve something. So anyways, so but university life is comparatively easy. You know, uh, we kind of discussed many uh, theories and how these theories were wrong, or whether these theories need any kind of you know kind of revamp. Or because think of something like the seminal Galler and Zaira paper, which is which is titled income dynamics and macroeconomics. I think this is one of the most famous papers on occupational mobility and intergenerational mobility, that if you have a bequest, then and credit markets are not imperfect, sorry, not perfect, that is credit markets are imperfect, then you kind of the people that kind of move on are those people who are with a bequest. So
Right.
essentially, that's one of the main results of the paper. So we kind of discussed in college that how this theory was wrong, and whether this can be, you know, kind of interpreted in an alternative way. So to me, most of my life has been, you know, at least the last 10 years has been thinking about economics, about how to do work that matters, you know. But other side, I like listening to music. So that is something I really enjoy. And I'm also kind of a great fan of watching cricket, and don't miss usually matches. But, you know, yeah. So, and at times, you know, kind of, laze around when I'm not doing anything. I am just lazing around, walking down the streets, roaming, things like that. So, yeah.
All right,
So,
wonderful. Now,
anything specific you if you
no,
want to
it's
ask?
fine. Okay, now, I want to ask a completely different question. I mean,
Sure.
you were sort of born and brought up in West Bengal, and your
Right.
first move out seems to have been to Patna, right?
Right.
You went for a
Right.
job and now to Uttarakhand. So, how
Yeah.
does it feel to you?
So one of the many things that the job of a research associate at JPL offers is that you get to interact with a lot of people,
Yeah,
and of all sections of the society. So that is very important, because uh, uh, you get to work with government officials, you get to work with the field teams, you get to work with the people who you are surveying. So they belong to all different income ladders. So the most of the many of the things that I came across in Bihar was that uh, caste was very salient there. Okay. Uh, I don't know about Dehradun or Uttarakhand, because I have just shifted and my field visits I have not yet started. But caste is very strong, and people of the higher caste have a kind of affinity to, you know, kind of suppress the lower caste, which is kind of the common story that happens all over in India. But I mean, this caste problem is there. But I would say that Bihar as a state has kind of improved massively over the years. Um, you know, it was nothing at some point in time. It was considered to be a, you know, kind of a black hole of everything, of sub corruption, of every ill that you can think of. But now it has kind of bounced back like anything, and it's doing reasonably well, I guess. I mean, except that there are a few anomalies, I guess, which are there everywhere, whether you go to a state, whether you go a district, everywhere there is some kind of anomaly. But I mean, overall, I think it is done really well.
Then
Uh,
what were your conclusions from the RCTs you did in Bihar?
So I was involved in two RCTs. So the first was one I was working on SJY, but I worked there for a very short period of time for about 6 months. But I would like to take up this question and answer it to the second project that I kind of worked on which I worked for about 11 to 12 months, about a year. The results of the RCTs was that. Uh, so let me tell you in simple language, people will do what they think is right for them.
Yeah,
Any kind of intervention which is kind of not prolonged is not going to make a difference.
yeah,
So that is my personal opinion of running RCTs. So so in the RCT that we did, with kind of tried to see if giving more information about jobs to the candidates would kind of essentially reduce the search cost, application cost, and how it would affect the spatial mobility of the respondents or of the candidates. So we found that even if the search costs are getting lowered, even if application costs are getting lowered, we people have this common tendency to form networks.
yeah,
And by networking, people would prefer to be in a region which is close to home. That is number one. People would prefer to be in a region where most of their friends uh, or acquaintances have gone for work in the past or at the present. So these kind of informal networks are very strong. I mean, at least in places which have faced some sort of a underdevelopment or in the developing phases. So people would rely more on one another. So I think this is kind of historically prevalent also. I mean, so I think I don't know if you know about this. There is a paper by Nathan Nunn and Leonard von Chicon on slavery and mistrust in Africa, which is a very kind of which I think is kind of a cool paper because um, they kind of find that as you move away from the coast, African coast, the levels of mistrust decreases. I mean, the closer you are to the coast, African coast, there is a greater levels of mistrust because historically that is the place from where people were kind of carried away to other parts of the world or other colonies for the slave trade. So people who are closer to the coast have a greater mistrust with people, even people among their own networks. So
okay,
which I think is a kind of interesting result in itself. So the same kind of theory applies here as well. It says that yeah, people like to stick together in groups, especially if you're older. Not sorry, if you're younger in age, you're in the age bracket, 20 to 25. You like to stick together. You like to kind of have. So this essentially find you know kind of is an informal insurance mechanism. So if I fall
yeah,
into kind of a trouble, you bail me out, and the next time I will bail you out, and that's how it works.
yeah,
So this was Bihar, and I think people are quite accepting if you are asking them for surveys, if you're asking them, if you're taking 1.5 hours of their time, they're willing to give because they have benefited from some scheme or the other. So and they know that if you're from the government and you have a liaison with the government, you kind of are working with them to make things better for them. They're happy to give their time. So that is one of the very kind of interesting thing, or very kind approach towards people who are doing 1.5 hour surveys to collect data on the field. So because busy people would by anyway refuse, and they would not kind of entertain. So they would simply say, sir, I'm busy, I won't be able to give you so much
right,
time.
right,
Yeah.
okay. Anything else
And
you want to add here?
Uh, so I don't think I have anything else to add,
Yeah,
but I just want to say that I have stammered, stuttered a lot in between, and I like to be excused for all that. I mean, I think it's just of an informal conversation. I think I really enjoyed it. Telling the work I am interested in, and sharing what I feel and what I learned about this. But at times I have my sentences have been broken and things like that would have gone haywire.
We are just,
So
this is not a grammar school
right.
or a
So yeah,
public speaking test.
yeah, exactly.
It's just a chance for young people to talk, and you have told us a lot of things. I think that's worth knowing, and it has given you a chance also to talk about what interests you.
Absolutely.
And it's always
Absolutely.
interesting to see how people choose what they want to talk about. And you have talked less about yourself and more about your work, which is fine. I have no preference either way. And I'm glad you have done it, and thank you very much. But if there's anything else you want to conclude with, please do it now.
So
By the way, I have an option, Shayantan, which I
yeah,
forgot to tell you, that since the last 3 weeks, I've asked every speaker if they want to speak for a few minutes in their mother tongue, that's fine. And people have used that option. So in case you want to speak in Bengali and you want a few minutes to prepare that, then we can put it on pause and you can come back and speak. But if that's not an option for you, we can end it now.
so I would like to speak 2 minutes in Bengali. That would be really nice. I mean, I would
Okay, good.
prefer to.
So do you need 2 minutes to get ready?
Yeah, so the video would be paused, right?
So I'll pause it right now and I'll keep
Okay.
talking to you. But now we are back from the pause and Shayantan is ready to speak in Bengali. So go ahead, Shayantan.
নমস্কার, যারা এই ভিডিওটাকে এতটা অবধি দেখেছেন, আমি আপনাদের কাছে অনেক আপনাদের ধন্যবাদ জানাই, এবং আশা করি যে আপনারা ভবিষ্যতে যে কাজগুলো করবেন, বা আপনার যদি এই ভিডিওটা দেখে মনে হয়ে থাকে যে আপনি আমার সাথে যোগাযোগ করতে চাইবেন, সেটা আপনি নিশ্চিন্তে নির্দ্বিধায় করতে পারেন। এবং এটা আমি বলতে চাই সবাইকেই যে আপনারা যারা ইকোনমিক্সে রিসার্চ করছেন বা করতে চলেছেন, আপনাদের আমি অ্যাডভাইস দেওয়ার মতন স্টেজে তো নেই, কিন্তু আমি শুধু এইটুকুনি বলতে চাইবো যে সবসময় আমাদের একটা বড় ছবির কথা মাথায় রাখতে হবে, যেটাকে বিগ পিকচার বলে। সেটা রাখাটা খুব জরুরি, এই কারণে কেন কি আহ, আমাদের এই মুহূর্তে এমন কিছু গবেষক, কিছু স্টাডিজ এর দরকার, যেগুলো আমাদের অনেক অনেক এমনি গবেষণা হচ্ছে, অনেক এমনি মানে লোকে লিখছেন, লোকে অনেক কিছু বলছেন, কিন্তু অনেকেই আমরা শুনছি না, বা অনেক কিছুই আমরা করছি না, কিন্তু বা আমরা আহ, তর্ক করছি, কিন্তু আমাদের সবসময় মনে রাখতে হবে যে যে ডেটাটা আমরা পাচ্ছি, যে তথ্যগুলো আমরা পাচ্ছি, সেগুলো যেগুলো ব্যাকড বাই ডেটা, সেইগুলো খুব ইম্পর্ট্যান্ট, আমাদের বিশ্বাস করতে হবে সেগুলো। আজ আজ আহ, আহ, আজকের জগতে ডেটা ছাড়া কিছু হয় না, এবং ডেটার ওপরে, ভালো ডেটার ওপরে রিলাই করাটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট। তো তো আর আমি আহ, সবাইকে এনকারেজ করব যে আপনারাও ডেটার উপরে, ডেটা নিয়ে বেশি কাজ করুন। কেন থিওরিটা অবসলিট হয়ে গেল, থিওরি অবসলিট হতে পারে, কিন্তু নতুন থিওরি চলে আসে। আর থিওরির সাথে ডেটার একটা খুব ভালো কোরিলেশন, কানেকশন আছে, সেটা আপনারা সবসময় মাথায় রাখবেন। যেমনি ডেটা ছাড়া থিওরি ইনকমপ্লিট, থিওরি ছাড়াও ডেটা ইনকমপ্লিট, অসম্পূর্ণ। তো এই কথাটা মাথায় রাখবেন, আর আশা করি আপনাদের ভিডিওটা ভালো লেগেছে, আর আপনারা ভবিষ্যতে ভালো কাজ করবেন। আপনাদের জন্য আমার শুভকামনা রইল। Yeah, I am done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I
Thank
think
you.
I got about 15 to 20% of it. Thank you so
Okay.
much, because I think we need to recognize that though you and I are speaking in English, actually India, most people don't speak in English. Very few
Yeah.
people can speak English. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to recognize that reality. And obviously, you have spoken. All right. Anything else, or should we end it now?
Yeah, we should end, I think. And it was extremely nice meeting you and conversing with you. And thank you for interrupting in between and asking me question, pausing me, because you speak at length, it's a soliloquy, it's a monologue, whatever you call it, but you really feel confused whether the person you are addressing to kind of can understand what you're trying to kind of make them inform about. So thank you for kind of stopping and asking questions in between.
Okay, let's
Thank
end
you.
it here. Bye, everybody. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Bye till then.